This is a war. We do what is required of us.
Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Surreal Gerald Quinn. As we conclude season 1 of the hit and epic series Snowfall with season 1, episode 10, the Rubicon. This is, of course, episode 905 of the Real Deal podcast. This episode, of course, was completed. These seasons, the show's first season. Even though I didn't think it was up to the level of the previous episode, I thought it was a very good episode in wrapping season 1 up and giving you, a sneak peek into some things that we can look forward to in terms of season 2. So a quick recap: Franklin gets a new house and partners. Teddy makes a tough decision, and Lucille chooses business over family. James, this is war. We do what's required of us. That was a quote from the late Alejandro, who, of course, we know was taken out by was killed by Teddy. We'll flesh that out more. But this is war. I think that was a perfect theme for this episode. We saw Teddy, Lucia, and Franklin really dig into their bag of tricks in terms of war tactics and in terms of just making decisions that may have been tough, but decisions that seemingly were necessary and decisions that, have been culminating for the better part of the entire season. You look at all 3 of these decisions that Teddy, Franklin, and Lucia had to make. These decisions have been I mean, you couldn't. I didn't see the Teddy decision coming. When I gotta admit, when I first saw this series, that the Teddy killing Alejandro kind of took me for a loop. But over the course of the season, you could see Franklin and Lucia coming into their own and having to make these decisions to kind of set their futures in terms of their respective drug businesses. So this is war. To me, this is war was the theme of this particular episode. Let's deep dive Franklin's transformation. So Franklin, at the end of this episode, you see him in total control. He's on the porch. He's on Jerome's porch, and he's kind of overlooking this whole neighborhood. It's his neighborhood now. He goes out there and chastises the ice cream man for not wanting to give the kids ice cream. We didn't have money. He says, "Look, give them anything they want. Give them anything they want. I'll take care of you." It's officially Franklin's neighborhood, and he's going, and this comes full circle from episode 1 when he was lecturing the kids on not stealing from the ice cream truck. So you look at where he's at from episode 1 to episode 10. He goes from a scrawny kind of naive teenager to now a full-grown kingpin who will lie to his mother in a heartbeat, will manipulate people into killing other people without him actually having the blood on his hands. We've seen him twice. Remember, Franklin has yet to officially kill someone with his either with his bare hands or with him shooting someone. We'll flesh out more when we get to best scenes. So, if you saw this entire series like I did, you saw in this episode, you saw what Franklin in season 1, you saw what Franklin became in season 1, and you can see how that could lead through the next 5 seasons, how that would culminate for the next 5 seasons. Again, he leaves this season as a fully grown drug kingpin at this point. He has a whole neighborhood. He has his crack house. He has his cookhouse. He has his has his connect, and he has partners, and his organization is just growing and growing. And during the season, Franklin at his best was a chess player who thought more about, who was a thinking man more than he was about violence, but would use violence when it needed to be used. In the case of, in this case, with the Lenny Ray situation, which we'll talk about more. So his transformation, again, going from naive teenager to fully grown drug kingpin, was in full effect, especially particularly these last two episodes, as he's making deals with Claudia and Ray, and listening to Leon, and also making deals with Jerome, and even making deals with Jerome and Jerome's woman, with Jerome's woman, which I don't know why always their name always gets past me for whatever reason. But we see Franklin fully coming into his own, and we will, again, once we get to season 2, which we will next week, we will see how that will continue. He'll continue to grow, but this definitely was not the same guy. He was not even close to being the same guy that you saw in episode 1. And again, I think the first season did an excellent job at letting him go through his take his lumps. It's not like he came in immediately and was like this, was on top and was like this drug. We knew how smart he was. We knew he was. We ended up finding out he was in college. He dropped out of college, so we know how intelligent he was. But he took a number of lumps, Louis, as he made a side deal with Louis. But he took a number of lumps. Over the course of this season. Getting beat up by Ray and Lenny. Some of the deals, not having a real organization in the beginning, leaving crack in his house. So there were a number of mistakes that he made over the course of this season. And in some cases, in many of those cases, he paid for those mistakes. Now I know some people, even critics, had a problem with the fact that they didn't feel like he paid a dear enough price with some of the mistakes he made. Well, they weren't going to kill his character off. He's the star of the show. But I felt like his transformation and his evolution through his first season, I was fine with it. And I think that it could be very tricky when you're telling a story that is part true and part, remember, this is based off a true story, as far as like how crack was sent into LA. Also, a lot of people think this is based off Rick Ross, the original Rick Ross. Like a lot of his characters some of his characters based off Rick Ross. So it could be tricky to tell that particular story. And with that transformation, again, I've never seen this. Like, you tell me all the transformations you've seen of drug dealers, of guys who started out like Franklin, became full-grown kingpins. And those stories, those are not easy stories to tell. Like, we saw it with Scarface in the movies, but this was good. When this show came out, it was a groundbreaking show in terms of, this was the first time that we had seen a guy start out basically as a kid, in essence, and become a drug kingpin. Like, we had never seen, even with Power, with James St. Patrick, he was already a kingpin. Like, we was already established as a drug kingpin. We just saw him trying to balance that with being a nightclub owner and trying to go straight. But this is the story that you're seeing with Franklin Saint was a original story that we had not seen before. Talking about a high school teenager going into becoming a drug kingpin. That scene is Jerome, Louis, Franklin. So they count the money. Of course, they're making money hand over foot with the product as product through the net, that's running through the neighborhood. And Franklin and Jerome decides to, revisit the offer that Franklin made originally. Now, originally Franklin offered Jerome 50%. Jerome said, he'll think about it. In essence, didn't completely turn it down, but basically was not all in terms of wanting to sell, wanting to go that route to deal drugs, sell crack, to deal drugs outside of the dime bags that he was dealing with. So Franklin, being who he is right now, and being in basically total control, says, look, you get 25%. The negotiation started out with 10. They ended up working it out to 25%. Jerome was like, hey, you need somebody with street cred. You need somebody older than these little knuckleheads that you're running around with in terms of Leon and Kevin and with family. So it made perfect sense. He gives Jerome 25%. And in this scene, Franklin showed you how far he's come. Like, he wasn't about it. He wasn't going to allow the fact that Jerome was family and how close he was and how close he is to Louis to get in the way of the fact that it's his connect, it's his product. He's the one taking the risk here. Like, Jerome, it would just be a partner and a worker, so to speak. Not selling. So this is, Franklin could have gave him 10% could have been fair, or 15% could have been fair. I think 25% was a more than fair offer from Franklin to Jerome. Jerome was just excited to be in, to be honest with you. So Jerome, says, hey, count the rest of his money. I'm gonna go take a shit. That's my family. So Jerome wanted. This deal was going to happen. Like, this thing was going to happen. I think Franklin could have said 15% or 10%. Could have stopped at 10%, really, or 15. He really could have stopped at 15 to 20%. I think he was being a little bit generous with 25%, but they settle in on 25%. As Jerome is excited, as Jerome leaves, Louis comes by and comforts Franklin. So again, it was just very interesting to watch. These three in season one. Considering how close they are and considering how it compares to how it ended in season 6. Teddy and Alejandro. So, and also Louis reminds Franklin of, look, the side deal. She still has that side deal with Franklin in regards to Claudia in the club. Remember that. And also remember the fact that Jerome does not know about that deal at all. Teddy and Alejandro. So earlier in this episode, Alejandro was very concerned about the fact that the girl was showing his picture all over the place. Teddy tries to calm him down in regards to this and says, look, I'm suggesting this girl has ramped up so much heat around town in terms of the attention that she's bringing to Alejandro that I think you need to leave town for a couple of months till things settle down, to let me do the work. Let me try to throw her off track. I could deal with the Colombians. You could make a deal. You don't have to be in LA to make that deal go. Alejandro is extremely reluctant to do so. He immediately tells Teddy, hey, let me just take care of the girl. Teddy wants no part of this whatsoever, and says to Alejandro that cannot be an option, basically, and that wouldn't be a good idea to have another missing person and to have another missing person that have to be dealt with. So Alejandro again reluctantly agrees, but you knew, and he gives a look though. And the actor that plays Alejandro did an excellent job with this, with just the body language and the look. He gives a look to where you knew that he was not going to follow Teddy's orders in regards to not messing with the girl. So let's fast forward that to Teddy going to his place and seeing some stuff missing, and he recognizes that the girl is in danger. Goes back to the girl's Victoria's place and sees the fact that Alejandro has killed her and is chopping her body. In essence, is breaking down her body in the bathtub, her lifeless body at that, in the bathtub. Teddy, of course, is in complete just He's beside himself in shock. Alejandro, and again, the actor who did this did a phenomenal job of how cool and calm, and how he just killed it with just no remorse whatsoever. It was like just pure psychopath in essence. Like the actor just had he said, "Hey, you can walk out that door. I did you a favor." In essence, it's the easiest thing. Just walk out the door and let me handle this. Teddy, with a gun in his hand, walks out the door, has a second thought, then grabs a couch pillow, and blows Alejandro's brains out. Now, I gotta admit, when I first saw this episode, back in 2017, I was shocked because I really thought the Alejandro character at least would have another season. To be honest with you, I thought I mean, we saw a lot of the character, even though he wasn't one of the main characters. He obviously he had a big part. Played a major role in regards to some of the work he did with Teddy and how he partnered up with Teddy. I was surprised when I first saw this, but again, this shows you that Teddy, don't go against Teddy. In essence, like Teddy is a guy who has his way of doing things, has his way of believing in things, and he is not a guy to cross. He's not a guy that's going to respond well to somebody going against, in essence, what he wants to do. Once Teddy got it in his mind to do something, you better kind of follow what he does. This really affected Teddy in a major way. First of all, I think he generally cared about Alejandro and respected Alejandro as somebody, as a soldier, as somebody who cared about was in battle in essence, and there really was a genuine connection. And you look at the course, first of all, and the actor who played Teddy, Carter Hudson, was phenomenal in this episode as well. Some great performances in this episode. I mean, this really affected him a lot in terms of, you see him withdrawing, you see him, he's up there laying on the floor in his boxes, and you see him just going through it, following the killing of Alejandro. He lets his wife know that he's not going to be able to leave LA. Something's happening. He's not going to be able to leave LA. Something's going wrong, and he's even questioning himself throughout the course of the episode, even to his supervisor about is he the man for this particular job? Really, one of the few times that over the course of this entire series that you will see Teddy question his ability to do his job. So Teddy, killing Alejandro really messed him up in a real way. And I get a sense that this is not the first time Teddy has killed someone, but I get a sense that this was the first time he's killed someone that he's actually cared about. So again, excellent acting by both actors. The guy who plays Alejandro did a tremendous job as well. So we go to Lucy and Oso. So following, Lucy, of course, father had passed away. She has a bunch of family, including her mother, at the funeral, and at her place, trying to celebrate her dad's death, or paying their respects to her father. She decides to go, following a meeting with Ramiro, in which Ramiro recommended that someone that his nephew would graduate from San Diego State, who would a degree in account assist or take over the books from Lucille, and Lucille teach him the books. Lucille says she'll decide when the time is right. Ramiro, of course, was not happy with that answer, and she leaves the house. She goes to Oso. Oso is staying, of course, in a hotel, and they're in the bed, and Oso is laughing at her. In essence, is laughing after she told him this news, because Oso was right. Oso knew what time it was with Ramiro. He knew Ramiro was not only going to try to push him out, but that she possibly would try to push her out as well. And Ramiro made fun, and we'll talk about this. Ramiro's big mistake was saying, in case something happens to you, that was a fatal mistake that in essence cost him his life. So Lucille discusses the plan that also already has in motion in return with Stomper, in terms of killing, in terms of taking over, in terms of not taking out Ramiro and some other cartel members in her family. She agrees with it, says, hey, let's do it. Has a perfect plan because she decides that, hey, I have to be there so I won't be suspected of it. They talk it out, and then she also decides, she also tells Oso that I should meet with Stomper to flush out the rest of the details and what have you. So we get to Franklin, Ray, Lenny, and Jerome. Franklin has Ray. I was kidnapped. Franklin has Ray kidnapped Lenny. Ray reminds Franklin and Jerome, hey, I don't know what y'all did to him, but he was pretty fucked up in terms of what y'all did to him. He was pretty fucked up in terms of what happened that day. Of course, we know Lenny was raped by Carvel. So they get out the car, and initially Ray believes that all he has to do is just drop Lenny off to Jerome and Franklin, and that's it. And that would be his job would be done. That's not the case. That turns out not to be the case, because Franklin, after a meeting with Leon, in which Leon says, hey, basically you can't, in essence, Leon told it had a Jimmy Nucky type moment in terms of you can't be half a gangster. Like, we got to make him, you got to tell them, you got to pull that trigger. Like, you got to pull that trigger. You got to be one to kill Lenny. You gotta be one to make sure that they know that we're real out here. And Lenny he had a line, not Lenny, but Leon has a line basically saying is eat or be eat. So I don't know if Franklin clearly didn't tell Ray that he was going to kill that he was going to have him kill Lenny. He clearly told Ray clearly thought that Franklin or Jerome was going to kill Lenny. So Franklin forces Ray to slice Lenny's throat. Lenny tries to talk himself out, tries to talk Ray out of it to no avail. Ray basically tells Lenny, hey man, you took this shit too far. Jerome holds his throat, and Ray, before Franklin shoots Ray slices Lenny's throat, and Lenny bleeds out. Franklin gives Lenny a wad of money and says, hey, now I know that if you we might be doing some business in the future. And basically has Ray I thought about this scene, and the thing about this scene was it showed a couple of things. Number one, Franklin did not follow Leon's orders, or not so much orders, but his advice in terms of saying that, hey, you have to be the one to pull the trigger. Leon, over the course of the season, a couple times brought up the Carvel thing. The first time when they were in an argument, saying he pulled the trigger on Carvel, and then even in the previous, even in this scene, in this episode, he brought up the Carvel thing about saying you have to be the one to do it. You have to be the one to pull the trigger. So I find it curious that Franklin, again, does not have, in essence, he's responsible, but did not actually do the killing himself, which shows you that, yeah, he's a full kingpin, but not yet 100% just outright, cold-blooded killer. Like, not to that. I mean, he's not at that level yet. Like, he'll get somebody else to do the dirty work. He'll manipulate. He'll bring in other people's. He can, but he's not at there's another level. Again, this is only season one of the series, that there was clearly another level of him. He can clearly get darker in terms of him being a killer. So that told you what you need to know about that from that standpoint. And also the second part is he had, the fact that seemingly having Ray in his pocket. So Franklin feels like, hey, he could have easily killed both of them, or he could have just let Ray go and he and Jerome killed Lenny. He does this to make sure that Ray that he has in essence an ally in Ray. So I think Franklin wanted. I think that was and I think that Franklin. I think he was in essence was trying to mind fuck Ray from that standpoint. If Franklin would have been the one to pull the trigger, maybe I don't know if he would have had Ray as an ally or been in Ray's head, so to speak, from that standpoint. So I think Franklin was trying to play a psychological game with Ray from in terms of making him kill Lenny. Either way, there was another of course there's another level of darkness for Franklin to go to. And again, this is season 1. Lucia, Ramiro, Gustavo Stomper. So Lucia's mother leaves right after the funeral is over. She sends Pedro with a chauffeur, so he was out of the mix. So the coast is clear for Lucia to take out her uncle. She kind of plays it cool with her uncle, saying, "Hey, I will talk to our nephew or talk to my cousin about the books tomorrow, and we'll kind of get that situated." He says, Romero says, good, that's good. So then you have Lucille goes upstairs. Then you have Gustavo come in, and Ramiro basically says, out of respect for the dead, I won't kill you. Won't kill you right now, but never come back here, never come near us ever again. And Gustavo obliges but asks to see Lucia one last time, and for whatever reason, Ramiro allows that to take place. He allows that to Gustavo to go upstairs, and then you see, we didn't see, but we heard the gunshots. Stomper and his crew take out the remaining Villanuevas, including some of the Villanuevas, the Ramiro's people, including Ramiro. And Lucio comes down with a gun, and plays it coolly, and plays it as cool as you can be and as cold as you can be, and says, uncle, and as Ramiro dies. So Lucio, has now officially taken over the Villanueva family. Pedro, of course, doesn't know anything about this. We'll see season 2. That storyline will flush itself out, and it is Lucille and Gustavo who are going to be, run the business. Now, again, I mentioned in the last episode I mentioned earlier that Ramiro's fatal mistake. Ramiro completely underestimated Lucille. He outright did. Lucille is smart. She's calculated. She if she were a man, she would in essence be running the family without question. We'll flesh out her character later on, but she completely outfoxed Ramiro just from the start. And Ramiro allowing Gustavo to see her again for the last time, that was just stupid by the character by that particular character. But just goes to show you that he was slipping, to be honest with you. So Lucille now is in charge of the Villanueva family. MVP of the episode is Lucille. The actress is of course Emily Rios, plays the actress named Emily Rios. You saw her in Breaking Bad. She's been in other things. She just did a phenomenal job in this episode. She was just so calculated. The body language, the facial expressions that she would give to her uncle. She just played it, and remember, the plan was a perfect plan. Her being there, making sure she's in the house when this hit goes down, giving all the details that were necessary to stop her and his crew. And she knows that, and she knew that Ramiro eventually would probably have her killed. To be honest with you, in terms of bringing in his nephew, and Ramiro really didn't want any women within the business. The only reason that Lucille was in the business to the level that she was because of her father. Once her father died, then that basically there was a ticking clock on Lucille and her time in that business, especially because remember, if you watch closely, the scenes between Lucille's mom and Ramiro were interesting as well, because there was no love lost there. Like Lucille's mom, Ramiro they did not, you could tell that they did not care for each other. And you could tell that it was the father, Lucille's father, that was keeping that whole dynamic, that relationship, even remotely together in terms of Lucille's mom, and Ramiro. So there kind of was you kind of had two factions of the Bill and the Waivers. One faction with the father, with Lucille's father, and the other faction with Ramiro. And again, once Lucille's father passed away, that was basically going to be it for Lucille, and she knew that. And Ramiro gave that away, of course, in that last episode. And she seized the moment, took advantage of it. And again, she, to me, was the MVP of this episode, coming up with that plan, and also following through with that plan. Also, Jerome could have been up there as well, but he fucked up with Avi with that meeting, so that kind of eliminated him. But he did come up with the idea with the cookhouse, and also he did come up with an idea with a connect to find to find out who Avi was getting his drugs from, possibly, so he can get it at a cheaper price, making up for the meeting which he butchered along with Kevin, in which Avi went up from 12,000 a kilo to 13,000 a kilo. So, but Lucille was the MVP of this episode. Again, overall, this was a very good season. Now, this was, to me, the worst of all the 6 seasons. And the reason why it was the worst of all 6 seasons is they had a lot of stuff they had to work out with the Teddy plot line and the whole Contra, that whole side plot, storyline, subplot. But the reason why this was the worst season is because you did not see Franklin or Teddy interact, and this will be the first and only season where that doesn't take place. Those are the 2 lead characters. Those are the 2 characters that are going to end up driving this show. So that they kind of sacrificed this season to do a build up for the up and coming seasons. And again, it's certain that they did six total seasons. The show we're talking about, the show now, is going to go down. It's an epic show, so the payoff worked out. Like, it was worth sacrificing a season just for that. But that's why this season doesn't age as well as some of these shows' opening seasons, because these two main characters did not have any interaction whatsoever. But that, of course, in season 2, we will start talking about season 2 next week, that will change. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. This podcast will be up sometime tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the evening. So long.